Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we're going to be talking a little bit more about the launch of the Made in China Model Y. We also have some updates on the Made in China Model 3, some news on the Model S Plaid and Gigafactory New York, and some news in the battery supply chain from Panasonic and LG. First though, we have to take a look at the stock. This is the first trading day of the new year and also the first trading day since Tesla announced Q4 production and deliveries. Tesla finished up 3.4% today to $729.77. That's a new all-time high close after hitting an all-time high during trading of about $744 per share, which actually for a brief period of time pushed Tesla above a $700 billion valuation. The overall markets weren't great today. The Nasdaq finished down 1.5% after opening nearly flat. So the broader market did seem to pull Tesla down a little bit with it as it fell throughout the day. All right, so first up here, I want to talk a little bit more about the Made in China Model Y launch. Of course, we had mentioned this previously that this was happening, deliveries starting in January 2021, but we haven't gone through the consumer reaction, the pricing changes, some of the updates to the interior and things like that, so I wanted to do that today. I think it probably makes sense to start with pricing. Previously, in the design studio, Tesla had listed the pricing for the Model Y, depending on the variant, somewhere around 500,000 yuan, which is up in the 70,000 US dollar sort of range. Well, I think pretty unsurprisingly, Tesla has brought that down much more in line with US pricing. So the long-range non-performance Model Y now starts at 339,900 yuan, with the performance now starting at 369,900 yuan. In US dollars, that would convert over respectively to about 52,600 US dollars for the non-performance and $57,250 for the performance. Interestingly, the variance there is about half what it is in the United States. The Model Y starts at 50,000 with the performance starting at 60,000, so a $10,000 difference versus the $5,000 difference in China. For the Model 3 in the US, for context, the difference is $8,000. I think this ends up being a little bit of foreshadowing. I bet we'll see the performance price of the Model Y come down in the US, but if nothing else, that lower price spread in China should give Tesla some good data on how that impacts the take rate between performance and non-performance. Aside from the pricing, there are a few other changes, the most apparent being the interior trim, where the wood trim, previously confined to the dash, has now been extended onto the doors, obviously on a separate piece, but visually sort of looks like an extension of the dash. You can see this in the design studio, but you can't actually see where the pieces would come together. So there are quite a few photos now surfacing on Twitter from demo Model Ys in stores in China. One of those photos has been shared by Drive Tesla Canada on Twitter, so you can kind of see there how they come together. Personally, I don't know how to feel about this. I think I liked it at first, and now I think I'm kind of going the other way. Obviously, things like this can feel a lot different in person, so I'd withhold judgment, but it just seems like a really small piece of wood. They have horizontal grain that, I don't know, just has sort of a weird feel as it comes at you. But I will say that with the white interior, I think this is going to look really good, and if you're doing any wrapping of that wood dash anyway, this gives you another area to do that in, and I think, again, will look pretty good. It looks like the white interior is not yet available to order for the Made in China Model Y, but we can actually see this on the Model 3, which has had similar updates to the interior, so it's got that trim now. And I don't think we've got any actual in-person photos of a white interior with the new trim, but we can see it at least in the design studio here for the Model 3. Looking at that more closely and comparing to the US version of the white interior, it looks like the door panels, which are currently white, would actually revert to black, leaving that new piece of trim as the only white on the doors in the updated version here in China. I do still think it looks pretty good, but if you were hoping for even more white, well, that's not the case here. As for other updates, the center console has been updated to match what the 2021 Model 3 out of Fremont has been. That applies to the Made in China Model 3 as well. There is a heated steering wheel that is confirmed on the design studio for both versions of the Model Y. That also makes its way into the performance version of the Made in China Model 3. And then for the Model Y only, there is now also a HEPA air filter. So I think that captures all of the changes. We'll just have to wait and see if any of those or all of those make their way over to the US versions. I think the heated steering wheel probably the most likely. HEPA filter wouldn't surprise me. The center console, I think Tesla's probably just working through any of their remaining inventory on the old iteration before changing over the US Model Y. And then for the trim, who knows? I guess I wouldn't be surprised either way on that one. Aside from those product changes, Tesla has now also removed the long-range non-performance Model 3 from the China design studio. Kelvin Yang on Twitter is saying that is due to cell supply, so limited cell supply being diverted from that long-range Model 3 over to the Model Y instead. So from a production standpoint, that's really important to keep in mind. This Model Y, at least initially, may not be all incremental, but obviously with the Model Y being a more expensive vehicle, Tesla will be capturing more revenue per battery cell, as well as presumably higher margin per battery cell. As for the consumer reaction in China, it definitely seems to be strong so far. That's probably not too surprising given that 30% price cut. I'm sure many following Tesla closely expected that, but certainly doesn't hurt in terms of generating buzz. After releasing these updates, Tesla's website apparently went down or was really slow for many people. There are a number of videos out there on social media just showing the massive amount of people in Tesla stores trying to get a look at the Model Y. And there are some reports out there that there may be over 100,000 orders for the Made in China Model Y. To me, it's not exactly clear if that means since this new announcement or just since the Model Y unveiling. Tasmanian's report on this says, quote, "Within 10 hours of the official pricing announcement, the total order numbers reportedly surpassed 100,000 units of the China-made Model Y," end quote. So that's a bit ambiguous, could be either way. Certainly, I would be surprised if they had 100,000 new orders in 10 hours, and it doesn't really add up with some other rumors we're seeing. For example, earlier today on Twitter, Ray for Tesla writes, quote, "New orders have filed up quickly since the release of new pricing for the Made in China Model Y. According to a Tesla sales rep in Shanghai, Model Ys ordered on January 2 to 3 will be delivered in February. New orders after that can only be fulfilled in March," end quote. Now, of course, sales reps can be way off on delivery timelines, but if there really were 100,000 new orders after that would definitely not be getting fulfilled in March. So personally, I wouldn't put a ton of weight in either of those pieces of information, and I also don't think it really matters. Obviously, with the launch of a new product, Tesla's going to have all the demand they can meet in the near term, so 100,000 orders really means nothing right now, other than that it would be a really good sign, obviously, for longer term demand. Speaking of launches of new products, let's move on from China and let's shift over to the Model S Plaid. Of course, as we have talked about, the S and X lines are currently down for maintenance, or maybe a possible refresh, for I believe another week. So we've got a couple of updates here on that front. The first is from Twitter, the account The Kilowatt, who posted a series of photos on January 1st of a Tesla Model S with manufacturer plates with blacked out trim, as well as maybe a wider body, although those things can be a little bit tricky depending on the camera lenses being used. But if it is a wider body, that would be reminiscent of the testing that Tesla did on the Model S last year at the Nürburgring. Maybe some new wheels here as well, but those look to me like a matte black version of the Arachnid wheels. Always interesting to see those vehicles out with manufacturing plates, but made more interesting this time by the shutdown, as well as a tweet here that Elon responded to from Galley of Hyperchange. He said, "Yo, Elon Musk, how hard did you sandbag the Plaid Model S timeline?" And Elon responded with a winking face emoji. This is a question many had after Battery Day. Tesla originally said that the Plaid Model S would be out in 2020, but when Tesla started taking orders at Battery Day, they announced delivery for late 2021. At this point, given Elon's response here, I would probably take the under on that. I think we'll have a better idea in the next week or two when Model S and X production restart. All right, next up here, we've got a rumor and some media coverage about Tesla's often forgotten about Gigafactory, Giga New York. Redditor and listener Sram Yaguchi found a construction superintendent job posting for Giga New York, and within that job posting, Tesla described the role by saying, quote, "As a construction superintendent, you will be playing a critical role in building the world's largest factory," end quote. Okay. Well, Gigafactory New York right now is intended mostly for solar. They do build things like supercharging equipment, but to be the largest factory in the world, they would probably need to add vehicle production. We do know that Tesla has ambitions of having more vehicle production, a third vehicle Gigafactory in the United States eventually. It would make a lot of sense to have that in the Northeast. Elon has said as much in the past, but he also has said that ballpark that might be, I think he said 3 to 4 years out. But Tesla has also raised $10 billion over the last 6 months, so maybe some things have been accelerated on that front. So a lot of speculation like that around this. As I said, it has been picked up by some Tesla sites, but ultimately I think there is a much simpler explanation here, and that is one of just a copy and paste error. So this job posting has now been deleted. If we go back and we actually look at Tesla's other job postings for construction superintendent, we can see that they do have one live right now for Giga Texas. The role there is described in verbatim the exact same way, so what I'm almost certain happened is they just copied that description over to the new posting for Giga New York. So fun to speculate on, and the fact that there is a construction superintendent job posting for Giga New York at all likely means they are planning some sort of expansion, but I do not expect to see Giga New York as the largest factory in the world. That will definitely go to Texas. Next up, we have a couple of updates on the battery supply front. The first is from Tesla. They have made an 8K filing with the SEC today in regards to their agreements with Panasonic. The 8K reads, quote, "On December 29th, 2020, Tesla Inc. and Tesla Motors Netherlands BV, together Tesla, and Panasonic Corporation of North America and Sanyo Electric Company Limited entered into a 2021 pricing agreement effective as of October 1st, 2020 until March 31st, 2022, relating to the supply by Panasonic of lithium-ion battery cells manufactured by Panasonic in Japan. The agreement is subject to the supply agreement between Tesla and Panasonic, dated October 5th, 2011, as amended, and sets forth, among other things, specific terms with respect to pricing, production capacity commitments, purchase volume commitments, and planned investments over the term of the agreement." End quote. So very important to note, this is on the Japan cells. That would be the 18650s that are currently used in the Model S and the Model X. You may remember back in June, Tesla filed a similar 8K announcing an updated agreement with Panasonic for Gigafactory Nevada cells, which was reached a couple of weeks after Tesla had dropped the price on the Model 3. So a couple of interesting aspects to this new update. Tesla says this was reached on December 29th, so right at the end of Q4, but the adjusted terms started October 1st, the first day of Q4. So they will affect Q4 financials, but again, just being for S and X, this is a smaller portion of the total. And then that December 29th agreement date is also pretty interesting given that that is right in the middle of Tesla's production shutdown. The end date of March 2022 is also very interesting. That's not a very long extension. It's probably worth us going back and taking a look at Tesla's previous updates to this agreement, but maybe that gives us a bit of a hint on Tesla's battery roadmap, which really is supposed to scale up in 2022 when they said they are trying to achieve 100 gigawatt hours of internal production. By the way, 2022, that's next year. That feels a heck of a lot closer now that we're in 2021. Last thing here is an update out of Indonesia. We've been talking a lot about Tesla's potential plans in Indonesia. There have been rumors flying. There have been government comments on Tesla's interest in the country, as of course they are the #1 producer of nickel, and Tesla is pretty interested in nickel. Well, others are too, and we heard last week from the head of Indonesia's Investment Coordinating Board, which per our Reuters report said that LG has signed a memorandum of understanding on a $9.8 billion battery investment deal with Indonesia. I'll be very surprised if we exit this year without similar news from Tesla expanding their battery operations to Indonesia as well. All right, that will wrap it up for today then. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed, sign up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast, and I'll see you tomorrow for the Tuesday, January 5th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.